There's no like straight way to
Okay, well, one thing that among the group's projects that I was able to access and download was Group 1. So there seem to be 2 or 3 different options. The one option that I chose to try to get so one issue that we have to explore a little more is team services, well, the related piece is version control. So I'm going to spend some more time next Tuesday on this, and I'm going to have to explore a little more as to how these are getting connected. But one thing that I found that I could do if I had access to your project on Visual Studio Team Services was to go to the code view. So for example, with the Group 1's team project, go to the code view, and then the other thing that we need to explore is continuous builds and integration. But we'll hopefully do some of that next week. But if I want to clone this, if I click on the clone option, one is to try to directly get into the Visual Studio IDE. The other is to provide this the URL. So if I went back to Visual Studio into Team Explorer, it says local Git repositories. So you can see the path here. Let me just put it on. So it's trying to store the repository in this directory. So whatever my username on my computer, source and repository. So if I go into that, let's see, source. Okay. And I could create another directory. So for example, if I want to separate the team projects from the individual projects, I'll create team projects, and then I'll put another folder, individual projects. Okay. Right now I obviously want to go into the team project. So if I want this repository to go into that's Group 1 team project, I want it to go into this repository. I'll add, well, I guess repository, like, where is my URL? Okay, let's see. There should be an option where it says, okay, this is a new one. Okay, it's not okay. I want to add a new repository to whatever is on my local drive. Okay, I want to create it. Project. Clone. Okay, I guess I'll go with this third option now. So the cloning is what I'm looking at. So let's see. So I need to go into team projects. Okay, so if I want to clone something that's already, so if one of your project members has already loaded it on to the Visual Studio Team Services, I can go get this. So the way I got this, let me go back to clone. It gives me these options. So I'm just copying and pasting the URL into this location here. And if I do that, it's going to projects. It's not empty. This. Okay, let's see. It's now empty, so oh no, it's not. Well, I was hoping that this is what I had been doing to get at your projects. Let's see. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, that is a little bit strange. I thought, well, on my home computer, my Surface actually, I was able to create subdirectories, but here it's preventing me. Basically, it forced me to go inside the pre-created repos, repositories directory, and then I could then say clone it by providing the URL. So some of the projects I could do, but for others I couldn't. So for those projects which I couldn't, and I need you to provide it through this time through FileLocker, but so if you can provide me this option, let's see which other group has this. I think there were a few. Group 2, for example, I couldn't do much because I don't think you had code in here. So Colton, did you load your code in? And okay, let's see, group 10. Group 10, do you have it up here? Group 10, that's Josh's group. For whatever reason, as you can see, I'm not. So one thing that I want to probably do is, so I don't know if this is, I need to again go back into this. So it's obviously not showing me any pre-existing. So other than group 1, I basically have had trouble getting access to your projects. So for this time, what I'm going to do by end of this class, I'm going to have you post it on FileLocker, and then for Tuesday, we'll try to figure out how I can get access to it on Team Services. But as I said, this is one means that worked for me with Group 1 especially. The one thing that I want to point out is, well, once it's there, I think, where do I go? Okay, once I have it, I can open it up and then go to the Solution Explorer. I also want to see our class diagram like you have with Group 1. The one thing that I didn't see with Group 1 was I don't see a test project. Do you have your test set up? Okay. Okay, so what I would like for you to do is to set up tests, and I'm going to show the best set of tests I've seen so far was Stellar's individual projects. So let's see if I can get to that. And again, in her group, one of the things I had asked you to do was to see if you can provide your individual projects under that same bigger project area. I don't know, how do they distinguish between projects? Yeah.
I think the issue that you're having is that we already published under our individual account.
Okay.
And we're having
trouble with.
We can't publish
Okay.
that.
Okay, so if you can't do that, then just send me or connect me to your individual accounts. I'll initially, again, as with the group projects, I'm going to have you provide me a version on FileLocker until we fully resolve how we can get it through Team Services. But one thing I did want to show you about unit testing. Let's see if I did want to find this. Okay, so she has both, she has the test for calculate grade points, for find prereqs, check for whether it was satisfied or not, and these tests go to, which database do you think this goes to? The test database. So some tests are failing here. You have updated it. Okay. Let's see. So I have to first update database target 0.
You have to do the test.
Yeah. Test connection, is it? We will throw an exception. Type. So the type of one of, so why do you think that failed? we changed the ID type from integer to string. So the user type, so the student ID is going to be different. So calculate grade points. So where is it failing?
Because of the GPA.
Yeah, it's the GPA test, and so it's failing somewhere where I think Stella has the ID as an integer instead of the new string. So the question is, how many of you have these individual tests set up and working? The last time I saw, I don't think anyone else had a test for calculate grade points. So the other piece was, again, the last time I checked, only Stella had this find prereqs. Josh had worked on checking for prereqs. Does anyone else now have the find prereqs? Not the test, but the functionality. No one else? Okay, so I have to insist that you do it. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. I'll go over what I want to do. Let me certainly state this. So next class, we will revisit all of this so that we have our individual and group projects hopefully accessed. And based on what several of you have said, Madeline and earlier, Cecilia, the individual projects, if you have it under individual account, don't go into the team. So we'll have to make allowance for that. So as far as projects, what I would like to see is for today, at the end of today's, by end of today's class, on File Locker, so submit submit your zip files for group projects. So at least one of you in each group to submit it. And I want to see you work on the individual project for both testing. So for the individual projects, let me open up the use cases so that you can okay, so the ones that I would like to look at and see are, check, this is the bigger, let me start from the first one, which was, okay, so one is the grade entry, and the grade entry we said we are not directly we are not going to directly get the grade points. The grade points get calculated. The GPA gets calculated not by calling it directly, but when we are making a change to the grade, like entering a new grade. So that has a series of conditions. So I want to see this use case for your individual project. So grade entry has various conditions to satisfy. One is editing the letter grade. It's automatically converted to equivalent grade points, and then the GPA gets updated. What I would like to see for tests, so for tests, like Stella has the test for calculate GPA. So let's see. So this should be there, and the other thing that I would like to start seeing on the project would be tests for the actual. So one is the conversion to grade points. So whatever you calculate, whatever you call it, calculate grade points test. And in addition, this is the one that's a little more that we have not discussed as much, but I would like for you to start exploring it. Right now, it's hard to test whether the grade, what did we call this, grade entry, so grade entry test, we cannot really test this. We could, but where are we doing this grade entry logic? What's the difference between these two methods are residing in which place? Calculate GPA, calculate whatever grade points. In the model, where is the grade entry being done? Controller, good. So it's a little harder. You can directly access the controller to set up a test, so you can say go there into the controller and then run the method and pass it some whatever test values. But what I would like for you to explore, and this I'll so this is more if you don't get it to work, well, that's fine, then comment it out. But what I would like for you to try is to create a method in the model class. And what would be the model class for grade entry? Students? Where does the grade exist? Course registration. So create a method in course registration so that you can run a test off of this. So those would be the tests for grade entry. So let me move it here. Test, unit test. Okay. That's the first piece which we have discussed several times in class. This part, the actual logic, we have not discussed the test, but I want you to create tests that go to the database to be able to, or Linux will calculate. Do you need to go to the database? I'm not sure if you actually need. You might need to get the overall GPA, right? Okay. The second functionality or user story that I would like to see is the check for prerequisites. So if you are just checking for prerequisites for a course, it's a simpler use case. When you say check prerequisites for a course, why is this a simpler user story compared to the second one? Yeah, Adam?
It's more of just a list, which is listing a course. Okay.
And if you remember what we discussed in class, let's see. Okay, search for prereqs. We did this UI. So Stella, did you connect it up? Okay. So this is the functionality that I would like to see. This is the result. So what we had discussed in class was getting this drop-down list, right? So, but we had not activated getting the prereqs. Right? So what I would like to see is for you to check prerequisites for a course. So given a course, provide the list of, or display the list of Okay, so that's the second piece, because we've been supposedly working on checking for prereqs for 3 weeks, right? So I want you to at least get the list of prereqs. But the more challenging piece, which if you are not able to, at least I want to see it, but this I really want to see all of you do it. The third piece is where you actually check if student satisfies all prereqs when they are trying to register for a course. Okay, and for the second one, similarly, what do you think I'm going to ask you to do? In addition to the functionality itself, what do we need? An associated test. Right? So it's going to be a check prerequisites test. So I want you to get into this habit of testing so that when you work on a project, you have an associated, say, a list of tests for each functionality. So I'll say this one, I'll say try. But 2, I'm going to make it a requirement so that you actually have it functioning. And then the next piece is something that we worked on, and I'll review briefly the concept of inheritance and polymorphism. And I asked you last time, how many of you understood this? So again, I'll ask you the question, how many of you understood it? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to have you try this out. It cannot be a full-fledged try, hands-on experiment, but the simplest way that I can see if you've understood is if you add another subclass, a child class. So what I want you to do is add a child or subclass to application user, and we will go with a child class which we'll call it's an advisor. So I'll just say advisor as the child class, and I was asking you what would be different about an advisor compared to a student or instructor, and River said an advisor would have access to all the functionality. Now, if you're looking just at functionality alone, we looked at how you do role-based security. So you'll just put the authenticate. So let's see if I'm using Stella's project here. So let's see, course registration. If I just go into course registration, what happens? Nothing happens. Grade a student, okay. Okay, so here it forces me to log in. So this one was how did I? Well, let me see if I open up the project that I was using, so I can discuss that. Okay, this was end of last class. So what what I had brought in was a discussion of inheritance, polymorphism, and what else was the piece that, well, it's not really the concept associated with these two, but essentially we brought this in, was role-based security. So we were looking at authentication, authorization, and a lot of this is built in. There are the identity clauses that essentially have a lot of built-in code. But coming back to the advisor, if the advisor is going to be allowed to do all these different functionalities, where would I set that? I wouldn't have to set it in the model. Instead, where would I be setting it? In the controller, wherever I'm authorizing, that's where I would be authorizing the advisor to be able to access all these functionalities. And one of the things which I did towards the very end of the class was this. So only instructors were allowed to access all of the student registrations. The individual student couldn't access the other students' registrations here. Adam?
If you wanted to add an additional role, would you use the comma after the condition and do the other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or is it, I think the comma comes inside, I think. So if I did this.
Okay.
Or if I had a role for advisor, I would do that. Okay. The other thing I said was, and this is where we were at the end of last class, for students, they are going to, I just created another action instead of, I took it off of index, I called it student registrations. Okay. So if I run this, let's see, what was I running this? I'm just going to close out most of these. Okay, so if I run this here, start without debugging, and before I forget this, for me to be able to test your project for all these functionalities that involve some authentication, what do you think I require you to do?
Be like a test student or a test instructor.
Yeah, for each of them you need to provide this, like a test student, and I'm trying to do it without any spaces. So this will be the username will be the email, and the password will be this. So similarly for instructor, I need a test, so test instructor here. So once I run it, if I'm just checking for the students' registrations, this is for all registrations, I'll have to log in. As an instructor, because that's who is authorized here. Okay, test instructor. Let's see. Okay, now if I wanted to, this is the index of, so if I don't give the path to a method, I get the index by default. But I created another method over here called student registrations. This is the list of registrations for a particular student. And here you can see that even though I'm logged in as an instructor, it's not allowing me access to this functionality. Why not? Because I said you can see it only if you are in the role of a student. And the reason it's restricted to somebody in the role of a student is, well, why do you think we want to restrict it to students? What does this do over here? Do you remember what this does? This where clause? Yes, no? Okay, tell me, what does this if statement do? Yeah.
Take the user ID, put it in the login screen, and save it and use in that where statement.
Yeah, it takes the user ID of the user who has logged in and then uses that in this where clause. Okay, so if I allowed an instructor to access this, whose ID will get used over here? In the where clause. If I take the instructor in the login, it will be the instructor's ID. So if I try to relate an instructor's ID, assuming the instructor has now been a student, it's going to return an empty set. So that's why I'm forcing this to be a student's functionality. And if I log in as a test student, I don't know why I'm using these. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so to get to this, I need to go to course registration and student registration. So this gives me the student registrations for just that particular student. And one of the questions I asked of you is, I was running out of time. I didn't, so end of last class, I didn't have time to create a new view, right? So I asked, so what's the simplest way to display this list of courses for which a student has registered? And this is really a subset of the list of courses registered by all students. So the view, the basic template for the view is exactly the same as listing all the students in the index. So what can we do? Or what did I do? Did I create another view? And the answer is no. If you have a basic template, you can reuse it by saying, use the existing view. In this case, the existing view is index. That's the name of the view. But what's the difference here? It's the same view, but what differs between the two views? Yeah, Charles? So it's restricting it to just those courses, so it's a smaller data set, a different data set, but it's exactly the same set of columns, just a simple. So that's something to think about when you're working on your project, so you don't have to keep creating multiple views if it's the same template with just a different data set. Okay, so that's another piece that I want you to bring in with advisor. So give me some functionality, some attribute or property that's different for an advisor. So it cannot be, so all these past, whatever, few minutes was to discuss that as far as access is concerned, you don't have to specify any change in the property, but so advisor has what, and one of the things, if you go back to your class diagram, you can have a subclass, and maybe this will be a good example. Okay, so you create subclasses for various reasons. Two main reasons. One is that you have attributes or properties that are different. So for example, student has GPA while instructor has location. But there's a second reason for creating subclasses. What's the second reason? Okay, good. What Cecilia just said, a unique relationship. So one of the things with, let's say, an advisor, so let's say an advisor doesn't have any attribute that's different. Inheritance. It's actually the other way. So I've added that the advisor is inheriting from application user, but let's say advisor doesn't have any unique properties or attributes that we are interested in, but how can we justify having advisor in here if we didn't have an extra attribute that was different? Okay, Jason?
Just simply they have different responsibilities than instructors.
When you say responsibilities, what can...
They need access to student information and also to courses, course information that the instructors do.
Okay. So remember what we just discussed. If it's just access, and Adam asked this question, let's say the advisor needs to have access to what all the instructor has. So you can just bring in advisor here.
Without approvals.
What's that?
Without approvals.
Approvals.
When instructors can approve students into classes, you have to advise them.
Okay. So if it's just a functionality, we can just keep authorizing just here. We wouldn't have to bring in anything into the model itself. We won't have to store it on so essentially whatever we have here is something that gets stored on the database as either a value like office location, or when you have, like Cecilia pointed out, a unique relationship. So we are looking, in this case, if we eliminate attribute, we are looking at unique relationship. So what is it something that an advisor might have, for example, that an instructor may not? Something. Okay, so when you come into the business college, I think you're assigned a particular advisor, which obviously the instructor is not. So how would you represent that? Yeah, so you would just add an association going here. So what I want you to do is set up an advisor here as another subclass. So instead of advisor having an attribute, a property that distinguishes, so advisor has a unique relationship, and So when I have the get user details, this will be for inheritance. Now for polymorphism, how will you apply polymorphism here to this new clause? Polymorphism would apply to which of, whenever we say polymorphism, does it apply to attributes? What does it apply to? Only if you can, well, since I'm going from behind, somebody was not answered. Let's see. How about, so do you understand polymorphism? Okay, so what did we apply polymorphism on? When we say polymorphism, we say
I think the method and multiple functionality.
yeah, the method is always an action. Okay, so it's related to a method. Which was the method? Get user details. Okay, so with get user details, we were getting the whatever the base details. Now, if we bring in advisor, what would you add into get user details? You want to get some of the base information, but they don't have GPA or location. How many of you can suggest something that would be unique that you would add in? What makes, okay, Charles, very good. Students, they are advising, so you want to get their names, and that's what the action would extend. So just as this action here for get user details, the way it practices polymorphism is to the action is to add on the office location. So for the advisor, as Charles pointed out, what makes it different from the other actions, get user details. This is the polymorphic method, should provides the names of students he or she advises. Okay. So if you can do that, then I can start seeing that you understand this concept here. Okay. So those are the things I want you to add on to what you already have, and the role-based security, I obviously want to see this, and whatever the instructor can access, the advisor should also be able to access, and make sure that for each of them, so when I'm running it, I would need to have a test student. So you need to make sure you have one test student, a test advisor, and a test instructor. Okay. So if you understand these, if you have any questions, let me know. But what I would like for you to do, and I'll have you submit this for next Tuesday before class, so that we spend some of the time discussing this in class. So submit zip file on File Locker with these functionalities before Tuesday's class. Okay. Any questions on this? You're fine with this? If you have questions on inheritance, polymorphism, ask me now. Where does this, so we said that we have set up these polymorphic methods. Well, it's a polymorphic method with child classes having extensions. Now, where does it get actually implemented? Where do you see its effect of a polymorphic method? When you call it, so its effect is really seen in the client class that calls it. And where are we calling this here? Do you remember? We created a controller and a view for, where is the app user? So let's see, display user details. This is a view. And how does this practice being polymorphic, or how does this apply the polymorphic concept? So we are saying that each object, so we are having a list of, how do I know this is a list of application user objects? Okay, this tells me it's a list of application user objects. So as far as, so when we come here, when we are looking at each object here, going through the iteration, what does MVC or the interpreter compiler at this point know? So that when you come to this point, what do you know, what will the system be able to decipher? All that it will know is that it's a application user, right? It doesn't know whether it's a student, instructor, or if you add on advisor. So at this point, it doesn't know if it's a student or instructor. Okay. So if it doesn't know it, if it goes to this point, it has to obviously figure out which object it is dealing with. So if I need to know which object it is dealing with, let's see. I need to call on somebody who's not been paying attention so far. So let's see who's seemingly not. Well, somebody from Charles, and yeah, who else is who I've not seen? Okay, I've not seen Austin's face. Is he here? Okay, Austin. Okay, because the other Jason and Charles had actually been responding. So your turn now. So you just said at this point you only know that it's an application user. So what will the question that's being asked here by the system? If I only knew that if it's an application user, at what level am I, right? This is the, so I'll only be able to use the user details that exist here, right? But my user details have to be student GPA, office location, which I have no idea of here because I'm dealing with the parent class objects. So what's the question that the system is asking here of each of these objects? What does the system need to know? If it only knows it's an application user object, can it know which method to call? When I say which method to call, there are how many versions of get user details? Are there only two? There are three, one in each of the child and one in the parent. So whenever you're setting up polymorphic methods, there has to be something in the parent. Even if it's an entirely empty method, you still have to have it because it flows from the parent. And that's why you set it up as a virtual method. And then in the child, what do you do? This is a simpler question. So how do we say that this, so coming back to Austin, so we set up something in the parent, okay? So how does the system know that this method here is connected or related to this method in the parent? Okay, good. The override. So when we say this is the key word that says we are taking something that already exists in the parent and we are overriding it. So that's something to keep in mind, the flow. And finally, when we come back to where we use it, in the client where it's being called, so what's the question being asked here? There is one piece of information that the system needs to know. Here, at this point, all it knows is that it's an app user parent object. But to get the specific method, what does it need to know?
The unique attribute for that one?
It doesn't, well, the system won't know the unique attribute. Instead, it's asking, remember in object orientation, if you make it human-like, you're basically asking the object itself some question, and what's the question? It already knows that it's an app user object, so what else does it need to know? It will just ask, what type of app user are you, right? So what type of, it can either be a student app user or an instructor app user. And now if we add in advisor, that will be the third type of app user. So as soon as the object provides this answer to it, it basically pulls out the method that pertains to that particular subtype. And this is why it becomes very powerful, because there could literally be 50 or 60 different clients using the same method. And here you don't have to, if you're extending it and you create a new advisor class with the method, you wouldn't have to do anything to the client. Okay, so do that for your individual projects. So there are a fair number of requirements, some of which you should have. If you are as diligent as Stella, you would not have to do anything, right? You're done with all of this stuff. The only thing that she would have to do is to add to the add a subclass that is the advisor subclass. But in case you're being really lax, you'll have a lot of work to do. But hopefully you already have this set up. For testing, as I said, I'm going to have you try this out. Check prerequisites is, I think, the piece that many of you have not completed or figured out. I really want you to try it, and I don't want to give you an easier option on that, because I really want you to push yourself to figure out a solution. And then if you can get this to work, this is for displaying. If you can, then try this out. I'm not going to be as insistent on this. And then understand, I want to make sure I understand inheritance, polymorphism, and finally role-based security. And do you remember what I asked you to do to role-based security to show me you understand it? Whatever the instructor is able to do, the advisor should be able to as well. So when you add in the advisor, you have to add the advisor in a particular role, right? How do you know that? Well, how do I know that some user is in a particular role? For authentication, you have to do one extra step for authorization. Do you remember what you need to do? Somebody have not asked, well, maybe over there, then, let's see. Mitch and, well, maybe Mitch and Justin. Justin, what did we do for role-based authentication? What did we have to bring in for it for .NET to understand that the user is in a particular role? In the configuration file, what did we do? Okay. Which one? No, actually, we needed to populate the user roles, right? So how did we populate where is not? First, we needed to populate these ASP.NET roles, and we have 2 of these. So how did we populate this? How many of you know the answer to that? Only one hand up? Okay, so that means I shouldn't tell you. Okay, Mike, do you know?
No, I don't.
Okay. So how do we get this data into this table? Charles is the only one who has his hand up. Okay. So I'll give you some extra credits and reduce points for everyone else on this. Okay, so what do I need to do?
In the configuration, the feed method, you need to generate that role and send it to the database.
Okay, so go into the configuration with the seed method, and you have to add in, so you have to add this role in. Okay, so that's just one piece of it, and the second piece is connecting the user that you create with that role. And one of the things you might, if you want to explore, would be to connect, let's say, sometimes some advisors like Brian Chang used to teach courses, so in which case he's in 2 roles of both an instructor and an advisor. So how do you accommodate that?
Sending the users to the database, you also assign the identity user role to.
Yeah, so you'll set them with 2 roles and then you'll see them. Okay. So those are the things to work on. Any questions on this? Yes.
So going into like kind of the theoretical, so what if there's a grad student that's taking classes, but there's also a advisor? So how would you go about kind of not making that much of an issue? Obviously, a student should be able to see something, but as an advisor, they should be able to.
Yeah, actually, again, Brian was the classic example. About 5 years ago, he was doing a graduate degree. He was an advisor. He also used to teach some of the introductory courses. So he was in 3 different roles at the same time. So you have to. So in that case, if you have just one ID, he will be recognized in all 3 roles. So you will have access to pretty much everything. There is an alternate of having them choose which role they want to access the system in, which you can set up if you feel that's appropriate. But otherwise, it will basically show access to any of their roles. Okay, so what I would like to do over the next couple of days, I want to access your group projects. Do you have questions regarding the group project, any of the groups? Okay. Yeah.
What all are you expecting to be on the group project?
Well, pretty much everything. But anyway, so what I'm expecting you to do is at least have some of your use. I want to see, well, I want to see what you have already going. Like with the group one, they had already started it because of the hackathon. So they have more functionality. But I want to see where other groups stand. So submit what you have as of now into the file locker. I want to see where each of you is. At this point, we have really been working with mostly the logic, the model, and the controllers and things we have been auto-generating. It's only now that we have added in something about security. The next piece would be like a little bit of the UI, and but gradually also incorporating the testing on everything other than just searches, including on editing, adding, deleting. Okay, so anyway, so what you would submit as of now is whatever you have on your project, including hopefully a cost diagram. Okay, so this is, when you're submitting, could you please submit it as, like, you can rename the zip file as a group number. So instead of submitting it, so just rename it to group 1, group 2, and so on. Okay, so before you leave, please submit this for your group. So name your zip file group 1 through group 10. So once you submit it, unless you have a question regarding either the group or your individual project, once you submit it, you can leave. But make sure you submit it here. What's that? Well, deliberately, because I wanted a group number. So save your, what's that? Yeah, just rename just the zip file alone.
He has our project, and he's in Texas right now for a job interview.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll just text him and see if he can upload it when he gets a chance.
Yeah, that's fine. I think he'll come back tomorrow, he said, so even just, okay, so I have,
Do you want us to put our on file?
yeah, if you have made any changes or updates, put it there. But since I can access yours, I guess it's added here to that same. So you figured out how to do it. Okay. All these. Okay.
Yeah, ours is put in the team services. You should be able to see it now. I'm making that.
Okay.
I've got what I have with me, and I'll be uploading this evening the rest of it because I'll have it on my laptop.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm trying to update what's having you guys right now. And I'm getting this there, but it doesn't tell me anything to this. Like it doesn't tell me where to go from in there, and it's a very non-descriptive.
You added in the new advisor class.
Not with the relationship, but I did it with like a unique attribute, but I'm still just trying to get it pushed in with that for now, just to try to get it in there, and then I'll go back and do the relationship, but I still can't get it to go.
So, did you add another migration to this?
When I try to add a migration, it's empty. Like I look inside of it and it's like it doesn't have anything new in it. So I assume that means that it's in the one that's there, because it hasn't worked like before somewhat. I don't know how to explain it very well, but when I go to look at there's no data being inserted, but there is like those unique attributes for advisor was inside my database, so I know that was in there.
Okay, so it's just going in here, is this advisor? Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know what is happening. It's not adding the actual data, like my population I'm working with. And I'm getting that weird error, and I don't know how to expand on it. Like, it's really bad.
But you did, when it created, you should have added in ESP user, the image that is here. What's the student, the admin, should have it someplace for it to know that it has to send in instruct the location. What happens if you roll it back?
If you just go up, I probably have the course target 0.
Did you try an ad migration?
Yeah, and it was empty. Every single time I go to try it, it's like I look inside, that's to see what the migration contains. And
okay, what we'll do is delete this one.
okay.
And then I'll just create it as add migration initial update.
Okay. And then I should I should roll it back first.
It's already rolled back,
okay.
So we can just update. The error right there, then is it the same one? It's the same.
Introducing foreign key screen. in favor for prereq, may clause
Okay, so you have to go to change the cascade.
That's what I'm
In prereq, the foreign key, prereq.
For prereq maybe. And then it's just try it again.
Yeah.
Really. Yes, the same error.
Validation
Yeah.
error. So, okay, then it's probably the data.
Okay.
When you have the sample data.
Mm.
So this is your test driver. Okay, then you call the
I have the new identity role advisor, and then I do my copyright advisor, and then for each advisor, an advisor list. And then I do my technical.
The only thing is, let's see if that is the role.
Do a fresh correct.
Do you want to do different times?
No.
It's not creating the.
Or do you want to just throw me like $2 and I'll describe you and I? Let's just do that.
Creating in place.
I'll just push you on halfway. You can try to leave them on the side of the road. Force you out with a car yard. No, obey. All right. All right, so 3, 4, 3, 356 is because I told you last time. And I'm going to give you 460 spring. This is the only way I can do it.
It's not adding this, but there's some problem someplace prior, probably. So if we comment this out, it's working fully. Okay. Let's just. We have a class now.
No, I have to go write a paper real quick though.
Let's see.
From my schedule, there's like right to decide for I haven't even.
Okay, so it's actually failing even before.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I scheduled right to 15
I think I'm not inheriting some application user correctly.
No, I think that's, well, let's see where it's failing. Whether,
yeah, I didn't get the email from my client. That's why I got it. This guy from, I think, General TV. Yeah, that's why I got it. I got you know.
I remember, like, I tried that shit like one of the times in the
So annoying when they don't give you an error that like the description.
Yeah, there are some extensions that we can put in that will give a little more, but so the error is somewhere with instructor.
Okay.
So because when I commented this out, it ran.
All right.
So it means your one of your instructor objects is was it creating the instructor object previously?
I don't know, because when I eventually went in to look at it, there was nothing. No data in there.
With the instructor? So, which means there is something here. Instructor name, location. Okay. I think what has happened is you flip the email and phone number.
Okay.
And for username, it checks for it to be an email address.
Okay.
So if you switch those two,
Okay.
then
All right. Such a little problem. That's such a big. Oh, thanks for helping.
You ever get it clear? You ever get it